All right, everyone. Welcome to my patch 1.2.0 D&D tier list. All right. In this video, we are going to rank every known power uh, from S tier all the way down to D tier. So this is with the knowledge of all of uh, the the buffs and the nerfs from patch 1.2.0, along with, and we also have all the abilities that are known in the game. We're just going to tear them from S to D. So we're going to start off with Amplifier. While Amplifier had recently taken a nerf uh, in the latest patch, where you no longer can have it applied to more than three people, Amplifier is still the premier uh, support ability. You still are going to want to use it in most case scenarios because a whole D20 in addition to something is an average roll of like plus 10 to a roll. It is insane. Amplifier is definitely one of our A tier abilities. This is going to be still one of our cream of the crops. All right. Next, we're going to have Command. Command is easily going to be our very first S tier ability. Command is completely insane. For those of you who don't know what Command does, if if you know the ability, spell, or attack of a creature, whether it is used in this combat or not, you can use your reaction to command them to do it. Uh, this ability is so broken for multiple reasons. The first reason is that you can target yourself, meaning that if you want to, you can use your reaction to do literally anything that your basic abilities are allowed to do. On top of that, it's intended and purpose to be used on other creatures is also insanely broken. If you've ever fought a creature before, you can tell them to use their ability, you can command them to move away. There are so many things that you can do with this ability. This is the premier versatile, this is the most versatile, the most powerful ability uh, in the game. Command definitely should be our cream of the crop S tier ability. Next we have uh, next we have consume. So what consume does is you can use reaction to feast on another ability after being seen or casting chant to cancel it. And after you cancel the ability, you also gain temporary hit points. So this ability is really good when you know that you are just stronger than someone and they have an ability that's better than yours. The issue comes when it's an ability that you can't see to consume. For example, it's borderline impossible to consume the ability of a lucky bag user because you'll end up consuming one of their other abilities, or you may run into someone who's using Voidcaller and you want Voidcaller users to use Voidcaller because then they'd be actively hurting themselves. So consume, really good ability, but it's really matchup dependent. So I'm gonna put it as a really high B. We can maybe come back to it and then maybe change where it is on the tier list, but for now it'll be a high B. Next, we're gonna have Dreadnought. So Dreadnought received some buffs in the most recent patch, where now it gives you a flat amount of AC, and the AC increment has increased from 2 to 3. So Dreadnought is actually more of an ability now because now what's going to happen is you're not just going to. Usually, the issue with Dreadnought is there are a lot of issues with Dreadnought. One issue with Dreadnought is that no matter what, you'll always be taking damage on your turn. So it made healing less effective because if someone upped you to one, then you're almost guaranteed to get dropped by one because no matter how much you mitigate that damage down, you're still going to get dropped. Another issue was that you were going to get dropped before you could stack your AC high enough for it to mean anything. Now, with all the changes, you can stack the AC faster. You still have the problem of lower levels of healings being less effective on you, but higher levels of healing are extremely effective on you. So while Dreadnought may have its problems, I'll put it in B tier. You know, definitely worse than Consume, but maybe better than some other abilities in this list. Gusto. So, Gusto, you're enchanted by winds. Your attacks do an extra 1d10 force damage on all hits. Attacks and spells that originally do force damage gain an extra hit dice, and you are immune to fall damage. Right? So Gusto falls into this niche of there are a lot of abilities that the goal is just they just do more damage, right? They're pretty boring. They're pretty simple. Gusto has the unique ability of you don't take fall damage, right? Uh, Gusto is one of those abilities that it scales, and when it scales, it starts getting ridiculous. As you get to like Power 4 and you get into higher level classes, you're able to use them and you're able to get like maybe like 40-10 worth of value. Being immune to fall damage might never be something that is really super useful to you unless you're intentionally like jumping off buildings, but that's not something that's really going to happen. So Gusto is going to be like probably the highest, probably a high C tier. It's an ability that you would use uh, if you got that as ability. You're not too mad about it because you can build around it. If you are a lucky bag user, you hit Gusto. You don't hate it, but there are better things that you want to be hitting. uh, Hydro. So Hydro is the water variation of Gusto. You do an extra 1d10 cold damage. Uh, and again, same thing. This instead now Hydro gives you the ability to breathe underwater. Being able to breathe underwater is so good for Hydro because what that allows you to do for Hydro is it practically makes water your favorite terrain. Now you no longer have disadvantage making attack rolls underwater because now you can breathe. Well, you don't have a swim speed, so you'll still have this advantage, but now you underwater combat is no longer as bad for you because now you no longer have to hold your breath. Now you can cast spells underwater. So Hydro is just a strictly better version of Gusto. So I'm gonna have to put Hydro in the B tier. Next, we have Inferno. Inferno getting the biggest nerf of the patch. It used to be the best ability in the game by far. If you were Inferno user, everyone would get one shot around you. It wasn't even close. It was just super broken. After the nerfs, it turned from 2d8 to d6s, and now you only get one extra hit die. It's more in line with all the other abilities in the game, with all the other buff abilities in the game now. Uh, Except it gives you resistance to fire damage, which is still really good. But now you but unlike the other ones, this one actually gives you the downside of being weak to cold damage. Unless you are for some reason against the Hydro user, it shouldn't really matter because cold damage is one of the least common damage types in the game, so you're not really going to find too much of an issue with that. So getting resistance to fire damage is really good. It used to be S tier, but losing the extra hit dice and the D8, all of those damage nerfs have really knocked Inferno all the way down. Uh, I'll say it's still better than Hydro since it does give you that resistance to fire damage, which is really good. So it'll be a little higher than Inferno in the B tier. Next, we have Investor. And what Investor does is you can use silver to add effects to your hits. You can expend n number of silver to add n divided by 5 variant damage to your attack, or expend n divided by 20 of your silver to add to hit. This is literally the pay to win ability. If you have a bunch of silver, you can just make all of your abilities really broken. And if you're poor, then it doesn't really do anything. Uh, I will say in the current metagame, Investor is pretty useless because money isn't an infinite thing. It's very limited on the amount of money that you have. So while in one case scenario, Investor may be like A tier. you could also easily enter to a fight. Your pockets are empty, or it's like you just didn't bring your money with you, and now you just don't have an ability. Making Investor probably our first D tier ability. It could easily spike to like an A tier ability if you are a wallet warrior, but I think the downsides are just way too heavy. Like it's like a high D, maybe it's a low C, but for now we'll set it as the D tier. Lock on. So what lock on does is on your turn you can activate this ability to always hit your attack rolls or have enemies always fail saving throws for the turn. Every turn afterwards you have to use your reaction to where you have a 50% chance to have this continue to work. Uh, this ability is just the worst version of a lot of other abilities in the game. It's just not great. You will guarantee to hit something. This used to be, not the worst thing when you were able to combo with Lucky Bag. Now that combo no longer exists due to the Lucky Bag nurse will go over. So that was the only play that Lock On ever saw. Now they're just abilities that are straight up better. When we get to perks, you'll see perks is just straight better. Misfire is better in every single way. Lock On is just has not received any love. Lock On needs to be unique in some type of way for it to see any sort of play in the upcoming meta. So we're gonna have to throw Lock On as another D tier candidate. Lucky Bag. So Lucky Bag also got nerfed recently. uh it says it was adjusted. It was just straight up nerfed because it removed the power threshold. Now at higher power levels you no longer get your mulligan, and now effects that persist no longer persist. um it makes it so that Lucky Bag is now just you get to pick an ability and you get to use that ability once, and after that good luck, have fun, because it removes any skill expression that used to be had with Lucky Bag at all. Now, what's commonly going to happen is, especially as you learn more and more abilities, you're going to have more and more dead hits where you're going to roll on your Lucky Bag, and if you hit a lot of these abilities, they're just straight up useless, right? If you hit Dreadnought, if you hit a really late consume, if you hit Amplifier, which is a persisting effect, which is not going to be able to persist. If you got D tier abilities like Lock On Investor, if you get these abilities that are just no longer playable, the pro to Lucky Bag was that Lucky Bag made these really, really bad abilities, and it made it work together with other abilities that were also not so good. And they came together, and it's just like you would sacrifice two bonus actions in order to actually make unique combos, which was keeping Lucky Bag in like A tier. Now you're no longer able to do that. Now you have to just pick an ability. You want to hold a good ability and you want to use it once, and hopefully that's just enough to get you through the encounter. Looking through all the abilities, there's really nothing you really want to hit with Lucky Bag anymore, other than the buff abilities. You want to be hitting the active abilities, because the active abilities will have the best chance of actually doing anything. You want to be hitting Hydro, you want to be hitting Inferno, you want to be hitting Gusto. Maybe you want to hit some S tier abilities. Maybe you want to hit Misfire. Maybe you want to hit Plague, but you want to hit Shock, you want to hit Surge. Every other ability is going to be a dead ability because they either have some type of persisting effect or it's not something that you're going to be able to use. You're going to not have an ability more than you'll have an ability with Lucky Bag right now, which will just make it strictly worse than your higher tier abilities, meaning that Lucky Bag is going to be probably uh mid C tier. The reason Lucky Bag can't go any higher is because it's just worse Gusto, it's worse Hydro, it's worse Inferno on this patch, because the second you use your Hydro, use your Inferno, it's gone, and now you have to commit your action economy in order to try to get these back, making Lucky Bag really it makes it slower than all these other abilities. But Lucky Bag always has it will change from patch to patch. Even for the more broken abilities this patch, you'd be able to use them once and then they'll go away. Versus if you were an actual user of those abilities, you'd be able to consistently use them. So for now, Lucky Bag is going to have to be a D tier, a C tier ability. Not necessarily D tier because at least if you're a Lucky Bag user, you can try to avoid using the D tier abilities. But everything in like C tier or higher, they're usually just better effects to have permanently, since persisting effects will no longer aid you at all. Mentor. Mentor has made its way up. Mentor used to be an effect where it was supposed to be an effect where it's just like, hey, you take this and it's a buff to your melee units, your melee teammates, or it's a buff to your ranged teammates because no one else will really be in the area. It also made you prone to getting AOE'd because it gives you AC and not because it gives you major AC. Da, 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 da. Yeah, it gives you AC and it doesn't give you saving throw proficiencies, so you're really susceptible to AoE spells like Ice Knife and Fireball. And it was just not a good time for mental users. In the latest buffs, though, as we see Amplifier getting brought down, and the range increases for Mentor, Mentor may actually be a legitimate buff spell now because now you can buff people within 60 feet, meaning that most of the time you're going to get your entire team in this bardic inspiration field. And even though you radiate AC, the distance is 15 feet now, which is insanely good, uh, making Mentor probably your premier buff ability in the A tier. It's a little over Amplifier, but if you're able to amplify your entire team going into a fight, it's probably better than having to actively use Mentor. You know. Next, we're gonna have Misfire. Misfire, this patch is super, super, super broken. For those who don't know, in the recent changes, Misfire has been changed to where you only need one token to always hit and do max damage. And now there's no longer, it's no longer random on if you're doing 50% of your target's current HP. Now you're just always, if you have two tokens, it's always going to happen. And if you have three tokens, then you're always killing somebody. It's just always going to happen. They're always going to die. And its power 11 ability, since it's power 11, it should be really strong. It is really strong because now you get two tokens, and with two tokens, it makes you stack up to the three token threshold so much faster. It lets you use one token after just missing once, meaning that you can intentionally miss once. By like, let's say you just swing the air randomly, you miss once, and now your next two attacks are going to blow someone out of the water. Misfire is just it's just the premier solo carry ability, and you're always going to use Misfire. Misfire is going to be better than Command in this patch because Command even has no power over Misfire because it just can't touch Misfire. It's not an ability that you can really see and interact with. Misfire is uninteractable, and it's really strong. Definitely, it's probably going to get nerfed in the next patch. The best ability in the game. It can't even really get stolen by Lucky Bag. Uh, Not consistently, at least, because if you get Misfire for Lucky Bag, if you consume one death token, boom, your Misfire goes away. Versus if you're a Misfire user, you get to continually use it. Misfire is just super broken right now. Definitely gotta see play. Parasite. Parasite also being a benefit from the recent buffs. As I talked about in my patch update, Parasite is just the best ability in the game by far. Uh, what you want to do with Parasite is you want to get your uh, infinite parasite pool, parasitic pool, and you're just going to want to always use your reaction to heal for full. Anytime something hits you, your turn's starting to come back around. Be like, all right, I'm going to use my reaction, use my parasitic pool, and I'm going to heal for full. make sure to always use that right before your turn begins, because let's say if you even take you take like 10 damage, there's literally no reason for you to not just use three dice, heal it up, no problem, because your pool will be insanely large, assuming that you stack this efficiently out of combat. Since unlike Misfire, you're able to stack this out of combat. It is just the best ability in the game. Next, we're gonna have perks. So, uh, what perks does is whenever you receive damage, it decreases your crit threshold uh, all the way down to 1, and then after you crit it, it boosts it back up. The power 11 threshold doesn't really matter because you're always going to be knocking this down to 1 outside of combat. Uh, Perks has a unique spot in the meta because it is technically a worse misfire, because misfire can be used to deal with multiple enemies. But if you are in a one-on-one against a perks user, you almost always lose, because the perks user will go into the combat, they'll be fully stacked, and they will, if they're a paladin, they're just going to use because they're allowed all of their bonus actions, they're able to use their bonus action to smite. Uh, they're guaranteed to hit you. They're going to divine smite at its highest level, and you are just going to die. You are going to get crit. You are going to get removed from the face of existence with all of these stacking effects, and it's just you are just going to get one shot. Uh, this is definitely going to be worse than Misfire, because of the fact that Misfire can also let you crit and do max damage and do a percent of a target's max HP. All at the caveat that you can't stack it outside of combat. Uh, but that's why Perks is going to get put into A tier, because it is an ability that you can stack outside of combat and it leads you to do really major damage. It's not an ability that's super good while in combat because it's not going to stack very efficiently unless you are a class that can take a lot of abuse. Or if you're against like a bunch of an animated objects user that is going to hit you a bunch to let you stack up your perks, but that's usually not going to happen. So it's going to be low A. It's a really good ability. You have to stack it out of combat though, or else it is not very viable. A unstacked perks is easily C tier with Gusto and Lucky Bag, but a stacked perks is easily A tier. Um, Phantasmal Killer. So what Phantasmal Killer does is, if you were to be knocked unconscious, leaves you at 1. It's basically relentless endurance. You are invincible until your next turn, and you do double damage on all attacks until the end of that turn. So it's a relentless, except relentless has prone to knocking you down right afterwards. Phantasmal Killer says, "No, you knocked me down to 1, and I'm guaranteed to get my turn." The issue is that you may be while you may be knocked down, you may have double damage. You're not guaranteed to actually hit your double damage, making Phantasmal Killer a really premier ability to make sure that you survive, but also it having the contingency of being once per long rest. It's not a very good ability. It's not consistent because you're not consistently going to practice ability. It's just all in all not great. It is probably going to be uh, below Lucky Bag, because at least with Lucky Bag you are able to, like, every 3 bonus actions you may be able to get a usable ability with Lucky Bag, while if you have Phantasmal Killer, it's on your opponent actually uh, to actually hit you in order for it to be any good. Phantom World. Phantom World has seen a lot of nerfs through the through last patch. Now you can no longer, mainly that your movement is reduced to 0. It makes it so that when you use a Phantom World, you have to be a lot more creative when you're using your Phantom World. You have to know where you want to use it, what movement abilities you want to use in order to still have you be mobile around the battlefield, but being able to just change the conditions of a of a battleground is super good. It is one of the premier abilities. It is because you're not able to move, it limits your mobility, but because it lets you change the battlefield, it is one of the premier legendary abilities. It is going to be like the bottom of S tier. You know, it's also not an ability that you want to take with Lucky Bag because unless you build completely around being a Phantom World user, then you can't really use your versatility of Lucky Bag. You have to just stick with having Phantom World active. Phantom World also gains the ability. It also lets you uh, change the rules uh, in for different combats. You know, you may only have one rule for this combat, but when you go into the next combat, you can change the rule. It is really versatile, and the really versatile abilities are going to be up in S tier because they're when you have a really high skill ceiling, it's going to be really good for you. Uh, Next, we're gonna have Plague. Plague is one of those abilities. It's just like all the other ones. You do bonus damage. The upside for this one is when you hit someone, they do a con save, and then or else they're poisoned, and then they take a continuous damage over time. Um, Plague is just as good as all the other ones. It's not as good as the as getting resistance or being able to breathe underwater, but it's definitely better than uh, the immunity to fall damage because if they do fail that constitution, if they fail a few con saves, even though the main issue with plague is uh, that if they save the con save, then it's really not. If they pass the con, it's not that great, and they get to keep getting to repeat the save. But all in all, it's it's pretty good. It's another one of those really high C's. It could easily be uh low B tier. It's one of those good abilities. It's an ability that you want to hit off of Lucky Bag. The issue is that after you roll this on Lucky Bag, you hit them once, it gets used. If you switch to try to get another ability, you no longer get the damage over time. So not that great. Puppet Master. Puppet Master has seen, even though it says it was an adjustment, it was just a straight buff in the recent patch. It basically gives you the ability to have conscious animate objects. Uh, it's just a really good ability. It can easily make you a one man army. It's also really versatile as you can command your objects to do different commands. Due to the change in the power threshold, you can make it do you could have them do multiple commands. It is just overall your cream of the crop, top tier ability is going to be uh, maybe even better than command. While it doesn't allow you to command other people or yourself, these small entities, well, large or smaller entities, that let you command them. Overall, really good ability, easily S tier. Quickster. Quickster is one of those abilities no one really talks about because all it does is it lets you treat your one action moves as bonus actions, and it has a really high power threshold where it also lets you choose to use your actions as reactions. Um, while the text is really simple, it's actually not bad at all because what it allows you to do, it can let you do some really nice things like it lets you cast another cantrip maybe, it lets you abuse extra attack, it lets you get more extra, it lets you stack on extra attacks. When it powers up, it really makes it do ridiculous things because it's borderline command on yourself since you can use your an action as a reaction. It's practically just command but worse at power 11, making it be just your average mid tier ability. It lets you do things. It's pretty versatile. Uh, can't be used by Lucky Bag users because your bonus action is used to cycle through bags. So it's just your premier B tier ability. It's just good. You know, it's low B. because maybe it's better to just have another ability. But Quick Stir, if you know how to use Quick Stir, Quick Stir can just be a good ability. Reflect is another ability that recently got buffed recently. Uh, you use it, use your reaction. It does more damage now. Now it's more suited to if something smacks you. If something big smacks you, you can smack it back for a big damage meets big damage. Uh, Still not one of the best abilities in the game. Uh, because what mainly happens is you're not getting hit by a large amount of damage at once. You're getting hit by multiple instances of damage, which reflect really doesn't help you against. You're better off using shield, which is a first level ability, uh, a first level spell. So it's going to be worse than all everything in C tier. It's definitely better than Investor. It's definitely better than Lock On. So it's going to be your bottom of C tier ability. Rift. Rift is a really good out of combat ability. It is basically just a global teleport to anywhere you've seen before. It lets you travel complete uh, far locations. It's a free action. It's just all in all, it's just a good. I need to go somewhere. Boom. You can once you've been there before, it gets you there. Uh, it can even have in combat. In combat, it can just be a strictly better teleport. So where if you need to get somewhere, use your free action. You open a rift. You you go to the new location and you're just there. You can move long distances with this while being in combat. It is a really powerful ability for movement, whether it be in and out of combat, making it one of the abilities that have both in and out of combat usage. Those also being Pup Master Command, Phantom World. Those all have out of combat uses, which make them really high on the tier list. It's going to be a definitely top of A tier. You could easily make an argument for it to be S tier, but since it doesn't, you're not going to end combats with Rift. But if you use Rift wisely, you use movement. Movement is king. If you're able to control the battlefield with the movement of your Rift, you can easily turn the tides against your favor. Again, not something that can be taken with Lucky Bag because the second you try switching your ability, your Rift is gone, and you can't try to use multiple Rifts. Uh, Shock. Uh, Shock is another one of those, just does damage abilities. But its upside is you can make them make a Constitution saving throw, and if they fail the con save, they get stunned. And that is just an indefinite stun. They are just permanently stunned. There is no save to get unstunned afterwards. If you hit them, they stunned. Boom. That's it. And you have multiple tries to since you're a shock user, you can just keep smacking people. Eventually, they are going to fail that save. You are going to stun them, and you are going to instantly win the encounter. Uh, Shock is by far it is better than all the other abilities. Because of the one time it's like if you're stunned, you're stunned. Good luck, have fun. It is definitely the only real counterplay to shock is if you consume shock, if you disable shock with warden, if you set your phantom world rule to be that you can't be stunned, but you need to you it is a ability that needs to be countered, which makes it so strong. It is strictly better than all the other damage boosts because you don't even need it as a damage boost. It is a I'm going to stun you, and I also get the upside of it also stun you. It is a S tier ability. Um, Surge. Surge recently has gotten nerfed. Before you make your attack roll, you can use your reaction W modifier. If it hits, you gain an extra attack, and it keeps stacking. The issue with Surge has always been the fact that when you're you never get to really start surging because your bonus to modifier doesn't apply on your surge attack, it applies on your normal attack. So yeah, you'll get your normal attack, but like you may never even get to start surging because you make your first extra attack with surge and it whips and boom, that's your ability. Gone. Surge is really unreliable. Surge has really high highs. If you're high rolling with Surge, if you get really, really lucky, then Surge can look like the best ability in the game. Because of those really high highs, the ability was nerfed. But because of that, now when Surge, even like low rolls, even if you get two Surges, you take 20% of your max HP. And people who want to be surging, these are Paladins, Fighters, Barbarians. 20, doing 20% of your max HP, you're helping your opponents hit you more than you're actually hitting them. Surge in this patch is not a good ability. You don't want to be, if you're a Lucky Bag user, you probably don't want to be taking Surge because you'll be hurting yourself more than anything. If you're a Surge user, you are crying this patch because your ability was already like B, maybe C tier, unless you got those really high roll moments, which usually never happened. Now you no longer, now you still don't get aided in getting those high roll moments, and now when you do get the high roll moments, you get punished for it. It's just not a good ability. It is similar to Phantasmal Killer, except Phantasmal Killer will always be useful. You'll always somehow get, you'll probably get the effect of it eventually. Uh, can't be the same for Surge. Surge is going to definitely be a C tier ability after the nerfs. Uh, debatably could be even lower in C tier. Surge probably should get some love in the next patch. Teleport. You free action. You move 30 feet. Can't take opportunity attacks when you move. You can't teleport to an unoccupied space, so you take damage. Teleport, strictly worst rift in every way, shape, and form. You teleport, and that's it. uh, yeah, teleport, not very good. Um, especially since it also needs to be a visible area versus Rift. It doesn't need to be a visible area; it just needs to be an area you've been before. It is just not very good, even out of combat. It's not a very good ability. We've seen where teleport just does nothing a lot of the time. It's just not. It is just. It is probably also going to join us in the D tier. Teleport is just not good. Misty Step is probably just a strictly better teleport most of the time, because at least if you're Misty Stepping, you also have an ability. It's really not that great. Time Winder. Uh, what Time Winder does is you go 6 seconds into the future. In your spectator, you see what happens, but you only get to see, it's not worded here properly, but you only get to see the very next. You don't go 6 seconds into the future. You go maybe 1 second into the future because you get to see one action that takes place, and you get to respond accordingly to that action. Time Winder, in the way it's worded originally, the way that it's worded, really, really good. The way that it is in actuality, probably the worst ability in the game because it's only really good in one-on-ones. But you're never going to get one-on-ones. This is just not a one-on-one metagame. So things that work together are really powerful. Time Winder, you never really get to do anything with Time Winder unless you get really lucky in being in the initiative, and so you're like right before the big bad, and you get to see what they're going to do in their turn. You can respond, but that is the only niche scenario where uh, Time Winder is really good. So Time Winder is probably one of the worst abilities in the game. It's going to have to go into the D tier. Next up, we have Voidcaller. Uh, Voidcaller, uh, you void tiles in a 4x4 area. These tiles can't be walked at the end of each turn. If a creature is within 5 foot of the void tile, they take damage. And if a void tile lands on a creature, they also take damage. Uh, Voidcaller was also already a bad ability because it could hit allies, and you could knock down allies. Take your allies would take damage. It would be really bad because it's not an. It doesn't control uh, the terrain. It just adds a hazard to the terrain, which makes it hard for both you and allies to pass through. So it's a net neutral. Now it's even more random in the recent nerfs. Now it's a 5x5 area. Uh, and even when it powers up to void 6 tiles, it just makes it actively worse because now you have 6 tiles that could affect your allies, which makes it. It's Voidcaller is so bad. I'm going to add a Voidcaller tier because it is just by far the worst ability in the game because you don't want to use it ever. uh, you just never should be using Voidcaller ever. It will hurt you more than it helps you, especially since it got nerfed in the last patch. It was already a bad ability. It was already a D tier ability, so it just went from D tier to below D tier. Feels bad for Voidcaller. And our final ability we have is Warden. What Warden does is it lets you lock away an ability, and it lets you lock it away for up to 24 hours. Uh, Warden can be seen as a uh, as a kind of a worst consume, but it's not actually a worst consume because what happens with consume is that you're gonna have to keep consuming abilities every time they go off because you just nullify an instance, but it does give you that temp HP that Warden does. But Warden just makes it so that you just point to someone because it's also at a 50-foot range. You point to someone and you're like, boop, no ability, and now they have to. It has to be a fair fight. Um, uh, no ability versus no ability, basically. Um, the when you able to lock two people's abilities, that's where Warden really turns online. Where now you're actually net positive on abilities, where you because since Warden is your ability, you don't have an ability, and you make sure that someone else doesn't have an ability. Knocking away two people's abilities is really good. Warden got nerfed recently. Really unwarranted nerf. Warden was already not a great was already not great because it was a one of those net neutral abilities. You didn't get a net positive from using Warden, which is most other abilities in the game gave you a net positive. It is just okay. It's probably definitely a C tier ability because it makes it so that neither if someone has a strategy that completely revolves around their ability, then you're able to shut that down. But if they don't, if they have a bad ability, say they have Void Collar, so their kits are completely immune, you don't want to warden away a Void Collar, right? You don't want to warden away a Time Winder because these abilities are already not so good. You don't want to warden away Reflect. You don't want to Warden away, Phantasmal Killer. These are abilities that you're probably not going to want to Warden away. So it's like the true high C tier because you don't want to use it on anything below it, uh, but you do want to use it on things that are above it. Persistent effects are really shut down by Warden because Warden makes sure to lock away any persistent effects that you may rely on. But even Warden doesn't really do anything to an Amplify user because you may lock away Amplifier, but you have to remember that you still don't have an ability as Warden. Warden power 11 or higher is easily an A tier ability because now you are net positive. You're able to lock away multiple abilities. But in its current state, Warden is just C tier. Uh, that is the end of the tier list for the currently known abilities. Uh, in the S tier, Parasite, Misfire, Puppet Master, these are all really high because they either have effects that are really, really strong for no reason, like Shock, Misfire, Parasite, or they're just really versatile. Really versatile. They allow you to control the battlefield. They let you do a bunch of things. Puppet Master Command, Phantom World. In A tier, you have abilities that are just good. They can have multi-purpose, or they do what they do really well. Perks, it try to let you go for fish for those one shots very consistently. Amplifier, Mentor are really good buff abilities. In the B tier, you have those average abilities. Consume, if you're able to see the ability to consume it, then you can consume it. Makes it so that Consume has good matchups, and it has really bad matchups as well. But the temp hit points makes it in the B tier because it's something that you're able to use. Dreadnought, it's okay. That's what B tier is. They're okay abilities. Inferno, Hydro, Quickster. all of those, they're okay, average abilities. They let you do what you do a little better. In the C tier, you have abilities that are not so great because they don't really have a lot of use. Warden, it lets you go neutral on certain abilities, and on certain abilities, it does nothing, making it just strictly worse consume. Plague, it is in that tier of it does bonus damage, and that's all it does. Gusto does the same thing. Lucky Bag, the nerfs hit it really hard to where it is just the worst version of literally everything in the tiers above it, where you're only allowed to use those abilities once, versus if you had those abilities, you're able to use them a multitude of times. Lucky Bag really only wants the only ability that Lucky Bag can hit in the above tiers that you really want to hit is Phantom World. Uh, because even Parasite, if you get your infinite Parasite pool, it lets you heal the full once. So Lucky Bag users are just Phantom World users. And maybe sometimes if you after you use Phantom World, you don't want to roll for another ability because your Phantom World will go away. So Lucky Bag users, they used to be in a Phantom World meta because Phantom World was just really good. Phantom World got nerfed. It opened up Lucky Bag to go for different options. Now that Lucky Bag's been nerfed, the only option now we're going back into a Phantom World meta where you just only want to ever select Phantom World, or maybe you want to hit Misfire, maybe Parasite, but there are no other viable options. If you hit something else, if you hit like Inferno or Hydro, you don't feel terrible. But if you were an Inferno or Hydro user, you would just be feeling better than if you were a Lucky Bag user. So that's why Lucky Bag is C tier. Phantasmal Killer, you know, not very reliable. Yeah, it makes you so that you don't die once, but probably not guaranteed to slap back. Surge shouldn't have been nerfed. Surge should probably be lower on this tier list. Sometimes you get a good roll, but you're hurting yourself more often than anything. And Reflect, it's really situational. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes you can clap back at dragon after the breath weapons you. Most of the time, you get hit once, and then you reflect it, and then you just get hit a bunch more times, and you feel bad. And then teleport, strictly worse rift in every single way. Investor, you need to have your heavy pockets. If you have heavy pockets, then maybe it's a ability. If not, then it's just not. You literally don't have an ability. Lock on, strictly worse than every other ability that lets you gain a benefit to hitting more often, because you get to hit once, and then after that it's RNG, and RNG is usually bad. And Time Winder, the way Time Winder works right now is just really, really, really terrible. Because of the fact that it just lets you see one turn in the future. Most of the time, you're gonna see allies one turn into the future, or you're gonna see an enemy that you don't really care about, and your ability also does nothing most of the time. And then Voidcaller is the only ability that not only hurts yourself, because Surge also hurts yourself, but it also hurts your allies around you. It is the worst ability in the game. If you are a Voidcaller user, you should never be using Voidcaller ever. And that is it. This episode is sponsored by Privacy. Don't forget to use my privacy code in the description. If you sign up using my code, we both get $5. Thank you, Privacy, for sponsoring this video.